thanks very much for battling the elements to be here. And we are battling the elements. The good news is it's raining on everybody else's parents' weekend. The second piece of good news is it will stop raining. I just can't tell you when, but it will stop raining. I really value this opportunity to have some time to bring you up to date on the school and then to hear what's on your mind so that I can make sure you're as well informed as possible. Remember, for those of you who are new this fall, you'll recall that we talked about the triangle with the school, the parents, and the student. Well, this is a good opportunity for you to tell me what you've been hearing, and then for me to actually tell you what really is happening, to clarify some of that. I want to start with the update by boasting about my colleagues. We've had an outstanding beginning to the school year, and not surprisingly, the reason is their initiative and their constant drive to get better, to perfect their craft, to be master teachers, master educators. I'm overwhelmed. In fact, I have to sometimes protect them from themselves. They have so many ideas, so many initiatives. One example, reworking our entire science curriculum. This is no small feat. We're in our second year of it. We have 100 plus of our 280 students taking chemistry. It means that to teach science at Millbrook, you have to be able to teach biology, chemistry, and physics. That's a real challenge. And to do that, a sizable group of the science department went off for workshops all over the country last summer to perfect their abilities and to get ready for this fall. So I couldn't be more proud of them with that. Similarly, 2 years ago, Liz Dahowski Morrison, Ann Matthews, and Samantha Tarnaski went off to a week-long workshop on developing student leaders. As a result, we have reworked our entire student leadership training program. The students went off and did some work right after they arrived this year, and that set the right tone as we've asked those student leaders to do a variety of work on caring for the culture of the school. I'll give you an example of that later. For years, we've sent our new dormitory faculty, our new faculty members, off to residential life workshops at other schools, run either by the Association of Boarding Schools or other groups. And I scratched my head in the spring and I said, wait a minute, I was on the faculty of one of those workshops for 16 years. I know that we have dorm heads who are just as good and just as experienced as anyone they're going to talk to at another school. So, Martha Clisby, Vinnie Soriento, and Dave Whiting gave up summertime to meet and then have our own Millbrook Residential Life Workshop in August. So everybody says, you know, summer must be a quiet time. These are all things that are happening during the summer, people giving of their time to make September to June as outstanding as it can possibly be. Thursday nights traditionally have been our faculty meeting nights. Every other Thursday, the faculty gathers in Pulling House in our living room for an hour and 45-minute meeting. The other Thursday nights, the dorm faculty gathers, either the dorm heads or the dorm faculty as a whole, to talk about residential life. The faculty is committed to even more than that now through a program called Tall Thursdays. Martha Clisby, Matt Dilley, and others have gotten together, again using their summertime to come up with 5 or 6 offerings to enhance our effectiveness and, as I said earlier, to perfect our craft. One workshop is on using technology in the classroom. Another is for newish teachers. Another is on dorm parenting. Another is on coaching. There's something called a critical friends group where 8 people commit to meeting and to sharing ideas, working through things according to a protocol. Again, in addition to everything that these people have to do, they're giving Thursday nights over to talking about issues that enhance their effectiveness and their ability I'm overwhelmed. They are outstanding professionals. The catalysts, and this won't surprise those of you who are experienced here, the catalysts for all this initiative are Kathy Havard, our Dean of Faculty, and Liz Tahowski-Morrison, the Dean of Students and Assistant Head. They are constantly bringing new ideas to me, things that they want to do and ways that they want to improve the community. Your children are another reason why the year is off to a great start. I'll tell you a quick story. I think 2 Saturday nights ago, well, 2 Fridays ago, there were some announcements in Assembly. Most of you know that Assembly on Friday is called Temperature Check, Concerns with Recommendations, Stories of Value to the Whole Community, and Appreciations. During Concerns with Recommendations, a faculty member and then a sixth former both said, "We have this gorgeous new barn, extraordinary facility. Some of us aren't caring for it as well as we should. So let's grow up." This is the student speaking. Actually, I think she said, "You're high school students now. You need to know how to clean up after yourself. So do what's right and take care of the space." That night, there was a window broken. We learned later that it was broken by an alumnus by mistake. Got that information again through students, and the result was Sam Tarnaski, who's head of the barn, said, "I'm going to close the space until you figure out how to handle it." I was actually in Washington. I got a call from her. We did some brainstorming. She got all the prefects. There are 10 prefects, 5 senior boys, 5 senior girls, and some of the dorm leaders together to talk about what to do. They came up with a plan. One of the prefects, Isabella Nugent, and one of the dorm leaders, Duncan Harvey, got together. They wrote an email to the school. They said, "We've convinced Ms. Tarnaski that the right thing to do is to open the student center, but here are the expectations. Here's how we're going to behave as the leaders. Here's how you're going to behave as students. And if those expectations aren't met, we're going to close it." So again, an example of adults doing some training, bringing it back, working with students, students taking on that responsibility. There is abundant research that shows when the users of a culture care for it, it's a healthy culture. And we're off to a healthy start because your children, especially those of you who have children who are student leaders, are doing just that. A year ago at this time, I think 53 weeks ago to be exact, I stood here and said, "We have some plans for the campus development. We'd like to completely renovate the barn. We'd like to add 4 more international squash courts." I think that's all I said at that point. Our plans grew a little bit, more on that in a moment. And I said, we have to meet certain fundraising targets to do that. Thanks to the generosity of our parents and our alumni, we met those fundraising targets, and I hope every one of you has had the chance to go into the barn. If you haven't, please do. It's another reason why the year has started so well, despite my story about a few people not treating it as they should. The vast majority do. One of the interesting anecdotal outcomes of that is I've heard from some of you that your children are saying, "It's an open weekend. I think maybe I'll stay on campus." The space has really been embraced by the kids. They love it. I love going up there on a Tuesday night. You'll see kids studying. It's terrific. So if you haven't been up there, please go up there. The squash courts are just about done. They'll be ready for the squash season, which begins on about November 15th. It's made a squash center there. It's outstanding. We also renovated what was the health center into a dormitory for 11 boarding girls and 1 day girl. We used that to eliminate crowding. So we added, our enrollment grew by 7 boarding girls, which is how we got to, one of the ways we've gotten to 280, our absolute maximum capacity. And then of course, you've seen that we built a pretty attractive and effective temporary health center. I think that probably is going to stay as the health center for a little while, or will be used for other things because it's worked out very well. We wouldn't want to let any grass grow under our feet. So there's a group that met for the first time last Wednesday, and we'll meet again this Wednesday to continue with the next phase of our Student Life Master Plan, which calls for a new dormitory for all third form boarding girls, some fourth form boarding girls, and then their upper class leaders, and a new dining hall. They really go together because we want to grow to just under 300 as a school, and we can't do one without the other. So that group met Wednesday, the dorm programming group. It consists of 2 students, Mansell Ambrose and somebody help me. Annie McCall, Chris Holbrook, Joe Kirchhoff, Daniela Voith, our architect, Emily Allen, who's head of Abbott Hall and who's lived in guest house, Linda Casertano, and the aforementioned Liz Morrison. So that group did some great work together. They'll meet again, and we hope to have some plans to show the board in early November and then again in January, and we hope to begin working on the dining hall right after that. Those 2 projects together have the tidy cost of $18 million. Working hard on that, and I'll have more to report at the spring meeting. Some of you may have heard about some issues we've had with technology on campus. You heard from your children about how slow the internet is. When we built the backbone for our system, first of all, 3 years ago, this is how rapidly things are changing. 3 years ago, we had a pipe. Our technology highway was 5 megs, 5 megahertz per second. Then we increased it to 50, 10 times. Then I think last year, we increased it, doubled the size to 100. It's too small. So we're doing 3 things in the next month because every student and every faculty member, I don't have mine in my pocket, now has at least 2, if not 3 devices on campus. We all have a smartphone, we all have either an iPad or a laptop, and most of us have an iPad and a laptop and a smartphone. So 3 times the number of devices. So we are doing 3 really interesting things. One, we're putting in all new on-site equipment, routers and switches in buildings to increase the effectiveness of that technology. We are going to, again, double the size of our superhighway to 200 megs. And we've done studies with other schools who show that seems adequate. Schools much bigger than us. And then we're getting a piece of technology that will be, I think, some of you may want to buy for your homes. It's called a packet shaper. And we can determine what access each device has to things in the outside world. So we're going to shape traffic so that if it's academically related, it goes through really quickly. If you're one of the 100 kids downloading 3 movies at the same time, it's going to be really slow. That all should be in place by the end of this month. And it's the right thing to do. It is interesting that they're all but the first are unbudgeted expenses, but we think we need to do them because technology is absolutely essential to what we're doing in the classroom today. From research to assignments to communication with teachers, it's essential. So that will all be in place, as I said, certainly by the end of this month, very beginning of November. Now, by your standards and mine, that's a reasonable time period. By your kids' standards, it's a little slow. So tell them to take their time. I've written to you and have spoken to a number of people about some changes that I've seen. I was just down in New Canaan Country School 2 weeks ago talking to their 8th grade parents. Last Tuesday I was at Greenwich Country Day doing the same thing. At the end of both presentations, and I've done the one at Greenwich Country Day for 20 years and at New Canaan Country School for 18 years, both of those panels essentially since they were started. And at the end of both, two different mothers, both with, I think, one with 3 kids and one with 4, both have now had to listen to me far too many times, said, so over the time that you've done this panel, what have you seen change? And it was easy for me to answer, parental anxiety has escalated dramatically. And then we got in a good conversation about why, and you've heard me talk about, I ask parents and they say it's because the world is a more dangerous place. Statistically in the United States, simply not untrue. There's no way it's more dangerous today than it has been. And then they say the world is a harder place. And again, I'm not sure it's harder, it's just hard. The world is a challenging place. Always has been, I suspect it always will be. Which is why here, we as teachers, and as I've written to you, promote resilience, optimism, empathy, perseverance, the ability to get up. Those of you who had children who graduated last year heard me quote Peter Chapman, our commencement speaker, about when you fall down, get up fast. That's what I said to the kids at Convocation this year. You're going to fall down, get up fast. But the one thing I want to add is, I'm a parent. Lynn and I have 3 children. Parents worry. That I understand fully. We will always worry. Just try to keep it to ourselves, because when our kids sense we worry too much about what they're going to do, they lose confidence in themselves. And that's absolutely the last thing we all want for your children, for them to lose confidence in themselves. You often say to me, I just want my son or daughter to be happy. Actually, I'm not so sure about that. I want them to be tough. As I said, I want them to be optimistic. I want them to get up fast, because if they learn to do those things, then they'll figure out how to be happy. They will develop the skills, practice the habits to be happy. So I hope that these next 2 days will add to your understanding of what we're doing, will leave you feeling more confident, more comfortable, and that you'll continue to convey that to your kids. We've got a great program planned for you. Our speaker, Rosalind Wiseman, was supposed to be here Barbara's not here yet, but momentarily, but she isn't because of the weather. So Betty, remind me how we're changing the schedule while Rosalind is on the ground and she is driving here, so she will be here. I'll repeat that. So when we're done with question and answers, you can go to parent meetings if you have them. If not, avail yourself of all the goodies on the other side of that wall. And then we'll reconvene here at 2:45. How many of you heard Rosalind last spring? I think, would you agree in telling those who didn't hear her that she's absolutely worth coming back for?
Absolutely.
She's outstanding. As an example of how outstanding she is, your children were supposed to be with her for an hour from 9 to 10 last April. She couldn't get him to leave until about 10:45. And remember, every teenager wakes up in the morning thinking 2 things. One is, look at me, look at me, look at me. You laugh, you must know this. The other is, this is the teenager's prayer, God, don't let me be embarrassed today. It's the classic adolescent dichotomy. The reason I mention it, kids were asking very personal questions, 275 of them in one room, talking to one woman standing right here about personal and important things on their minds. So please come back at 2:45. Before I turn to your questions, I want to introduce the 2 people who have more Millbrook numbers after their names than anybody I know. And if I added their parents and aunts and uncles and siblings numbers, it would be way too many. Christopher and Alice Holbrook are the chairs of the annual fund, critically important volunteer position. Alice is a former board member. Chris is a current board member. They're both class of '82. They have a son who graduated in 11, a daughter who graduated in 12, and a son who will graduate in 14. So I'd just like Chris and Alice to stand up so we can thank them for the leadership that they will provide. This is just one of many, many ways in which they serve their alma mater. So we've got a few minutes for questions. Anything on your mind? Cassie. Package shaper?
Will that impact phones? Because I can only talk to my son with his phone on the windowsill on speaker at a certain angle. Not that I'm calling him, but just ever.
It's a very good question. And actually, you brought up something that I failed to mention. One of the reasons why our system needs to be so large is we're the only game in town. In other words, there are a lot of schools where they're cable to campus and where there's a cell tower nearby, which means that kids bring their own data plan, and faculty and staff have their own data plans. We have none of that. It all runs through Millbrook. We're exploring cell technology again. Those of you who've been around a while will remember we had an outstanding proposal to build a really innocuous cell tree in the pine woods at the north end of campus. Verizon was going to do it. It was great, and a lot of people with no vision blocked it. Ultimately, the reason it was blocked is because we had to let, the town said that there has to be co-location or equal access, meaning that if Verizon can be on the tower, so too we have to grant access to Sprint, AT&T, and everywhere else, and pretty soon it could be 30 feet above the tree line, and the board said that's, we don't want that in the center of our campus. But there's new technology since then that could help us. We're also looking at finding a way to partner with a cable company to bring that down School Road. Oddly enough, it's on Levitt Road, but it's not on School Road. So we're looking into that. But no, the answer is this technology won't help the cell service, but we are working on helping the cell service.
And do you shut it off and on, access to the internet?
Yes. Right now, and this is what you probably heard of, it is shut off in dorms during the wireless is shut off in dorms during the day. And that's because the traffic there was getting in the way of our ability to have it work in the foreign language center, for example, where downloading and video streaming are essential to the lessons we want to teach. But don't let your kids complain about this. Here's why. There is a $4 million student center with the best wireless access on campus. They just can walk there. And in fact, I think one of the good things is, a lot of the kids here have forgotten what it's like to use the student center because they didn't have it for half of last year. So we're trying to drive them to that space to use it and to use it well. So they do have a lot of wireless access during the day. But we do. And also it's on in the dorms. The wireless is on in the dorms, I think, from 7 to 8 a.m., maybe even 6 to 8 a.m., so kids can print out papers. And then it goes on again after the academic day is over. But then it's on in the school. It's on in every academic building and the barn on campus all the time. It shuts down, I think, for almost every student, maybe not sixth formers at 11. And, during study hall, they even without Packet Shaper, they don't have access to social media sites, online shopping. You can ask Linda about all that because for a long time we were on the student network. And so, anything, not so much. Yes, there'll still be that guidance. Good question. Thank you. Yes.
How goes the ongoing war against drug and alcohol?
The question was, how goes our ongoing war against drugs and alcohol? I think, first of all, the choice of language is outstanding. Our view since I arrived has been that this is something that has to happen every year. To ever say that it's gotten better or worse is like living with an ostrich in the ground. It is part of reality today, and as you think about this, it is also not just illegal substances. It is prescription substances which are being abused by kids, maybe even more than illegal substances. So we're working on this on multiple fronts. Most of you know about the Human Development Program, which is for fourth formers. Every fourth former is divided and participates in a group of 10 to 12. Those groups are run by a trained faculty member who, again, gives of her or his time in addition to everything else they have to do, and 2 peer counselors. There are, I think, 14 fifth and sixth formers who are peer counselors, and they and the faculty member run these groups, and the curriculum includes drug and alcohol education, human sexuality, nutrition, and a variety of other issues. So that's the education part. We also brought it down to the third form, where peer counselors are going into guest house and prom and talking about living away from home, getting along with roommates, and peer pressure and all of those things. The peer counselors and the dorm leaders work hard at trying to identify problematic behavior with peers and steer them in the right direction, back to saying, if kids own the culture, if kids say this is not what we do here, then it's a healthier place. And most of the time when a student is caught for drug or alcohol use, it's because they've either turned themselves in because a peer has gone and said, it's not what we do, either you go see the dean or I'm going to go see the dean, which I think is a healthy sign. All of you also know that we are what is called in the business a second chance school. This, I think, is essential to a healthy program, because if you're a one chance school, I once had lunch, I'd say it's about 15 years ago, at the head of a zero tolerance school. Very good friend. I had just dismissed a student that morning for a second drug alcohol violation. I said to him how sad I was to see it happen, but it's essentially said, we haven't dismissed anyone for that for 3 years. And I looked at him and said, are you bragging or complaining? And he said, I'm complaining, because when the stakes are that high, no one will confront anybody. And the reason our kids will confront each other, because the kids know what's going on a lot faster than the adults do. And the reason that they will do that is because they know there's a chance to learn and grow from a mistake. If you violate our drug alcohol policy, you're on probation, you're suspended, and then you come back and have a variety of supports, including meeting with your advisor each week, and then participating with Mr. Lopez in a support group. He calls it the dance club, I think. Is that what he calls it? He calls it the dance club. Jonathan, is that what you call it, Jonathan? Yes. And it's all confidential, and it's a support system for those kids. We also have just started up a confidential Alateen group for children who have, for one reason or another, suffered as a result of chemical dependency in a family. That too is confidential, run by a faculty member, but that's a support for them. So we're approaching this from a wide variety of levels, but it is ongoing. We have to start every year saying, this is what we do. Ann Matthews and Cam Hardy run the Human Development Program. Ann runs the peer counselor group. Liz Dahowski and Matt Dilley run the dorm leaders, and Liz and I run the prefects. And so we're constantly meeting with them, talking about what's going on, and what do they think, and how can we support them. So very good question. Thank you. Anything else? Terrific. I'm grateful again to all of you for being here and with us. I'm especially grateful for your children. Your children are terrific. They're trying really hard to do well, to do the right thing. They may not always get it right. That's part of being a teenager. I'm quite certain that I am stuck in my adolescence. I remember all the dumb things I did very clearly. I think these kids are remarkable for the level of commitment they show to the school every day. Millbrook, I think, Millbrook is the most demanding school in the country. And I think that is because the academics are tough. Some of you are telling me that, the challenges kids are facing. But in addition to that, our students own the culture, as I said. They have 6 classes. They have a community service. They volunteer to do numerous other things. We've already had, for example, 5 or 6 admissions receptions. We've got 5 or 6 more to go. And your students travel with us to speak. We put it all in their hands. I say a few words of welcome. John Downs says a few words of welcome. Then off they go and they talk about the school. They give tours. We're already on a record pace for tours this year. Imagine that between 150 and 160 families will visit the campus in October alone. Start figuring that out per day. Your children are the ones giving those tours. We train every student in the school, or I should say every returning student, as a tour guide. They play sports, they're in the theater, they're in this building, they're doing community service off campus, they're busy, they're terrific, and I couldn't be more proud of them or more grateful for the ways that they engage in the school. So thank you for sharing with us. Feel free for some refreshments or to go to your parent meetings. We're all back here, I would say, at 2:40. Thank you.